Welcome to the Everything Co-working podcast. This is your host, Jamie Russo. Thank you for joining me today. I am excited to cover this topic today around finding a business coach that's the right fit for you and the stage that you're in your business. And this is very timely because we have just launched a new coaching program that has two versions. So we're going to talk about that. It's the Revenue Playbook and the Profit Accelerator. So we'll share some more details about that shortly and make sure you know where to go to find more information on those programs. But I thought it would be a good time just to talk about coaching in general for business owners, how to choose a coach, and how to know sort of what stage you're in and how you should evaluate what type of coach is the right fit for you at a given time. If you are thinking about starting a business or already in business, you have probably thought about getting some support before, although also maybe not. So I'm going to tell a quick story about the first coach that I ever worked with. I often reflect on this because it was just like really a significant and pivotal moment in my life. And you get to a point in your life where you have a lot of memories and they all get kind of blurry, but it's interesting to think about like why do some memories just stick out in your, brain like they were yesterday. So this would have been like 2011, maybe 2010, 2011. And I was working for a startup company. I'd been there for 5 years. I'd gone to business school. I'd done brand management at Kraft Foods, which is now Mondelez. So brand management basically. And ever since I went to business school, I just had this dream of running a business on my own. But I loved the startup world. I, loved the team that I had there. And I had a lot of responsibility, very big role. And then there were many things in my life that drew me to thinking, okay, this is the time. I had one of those. That's another moment that's so burned in my brain. And I have so few of these. It's just interesting. I just remember sitting in a meeting room in our office and thinking, I'm done. Like, I have to do something else. Just that pain of it is time to move on. I can't do this anymore. And I loved so many things about it, but just that like really like internal drive, like this is the time. Something has to change. Around that time, I had coffee with one of my best friends from business school, and she told me about this coach that she was working with. And at the time, coaches were not like really a thing. And this was not a business coach. It was more, I don't know if you want to call it a life coach, but she told me about her experience. I was like, this is so interesting. So I did a call with her and I was like, I don't, really know what I want, but I want to do something different. I did not know that I wanted to start a co-working business. And I didn't know what co-working even was back then. So I worked with a coach and so just circling back to kind of our conversation here, the sometimes in your life you just need someone to take you through a process that you can't pull yourself through, right? We want to be independent and strong and make all the decisions ourselves, and I often call myself a chronic DIYer because I totally am. My instant reflex is to do everything myself. That's like totally ingrained. I grew up on a farm. My dad fixed everything, did everything. We had a huge garden. There's so many things about my life that just ingrained this DIY approach in me, which can be really dangerous. So even now, I'm really proud of the coaches that I've hired because it's an investment and it's also just a real just dissonance with who I am as a person. So if you can relate to that, this might be helpful. Okay, so it was quite expensive to work with this coach. We worked one-on-one, and she just pulled me through this process, which is what I needed right then to help me decide what to do next and make some decisions. And for me, it was around, okay, I want to start a business. What's it going to be? I wanted to start something around healthy food at the time, like healthy, fast takeout food, because this was a real problem I struggled with. I worked all the time. My husband worked all the time. This was before I had a kid. Maybe I had a dog at the time. And I was just really passionate about that. And for various reasons, I can't even remember how I found co-working. I found this idea of co-working. There was barely anything about it on the internet at the time. And anyway, long story short, she just pulled me through this process of Don't worry about the how. What's the next step? Don't worry about the how. What's the next step? And this was perfect for me. It's what I needed. It was like part mindset, part like, having someone like a thought partner to just figure out like what's the next step. But she really like pushed me to do things that were totally out of my comfort zone at the time. I know you listen to me now and I sound like I have so much more confidence than I did back then. When you own a business, you're really forced to take on a persona, right? That's maybe new to you. And so it can be really life changing. So I was, somewhat of a different person back then. Not totally different, but a little bit different. Definitely less sure and confident. Okay, I only mentioned this, it's a little bit in the weeds, but part of my co-working journey was I was in Chicago at the time. And Sam Rosen, a huge shout out to anybody who knows Sam, had a tiny little co-working space. This was very early days before he had a bigger co-working space and before he started Desk Time and before he started Desk Pass. And that was like my original inspiration. So he will always hold a little place in my heart. But his was not at all the model I ended up going with. So anyway, she was what I needed at the time in some senses, right? So the good news is she just kept me moving. I had this dream and I had a lot of, of course you go through all the things you go through around, can I do this? Is this too much risk? How's my spouse going to feel about me signing this lease, et cetera, et cetera. I would say the misstep I probably took was not having a coach that knew anything about the co-working business model. Because once I got to the point where, okay, I know what the steps are and I knew what my plan was, she was no longer the right coach, right? Because then I didn't need mindset help. I needed to know how to start this business. But that I made up all by myself, which was probably the thing I had to do at the time. And like so many of you, I reverse engineered how I thought it would work. I mean, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just can laugh and laugh about, I thought I was going to do all cubicles. I thought I just had all these. I hired a designer who turned out to be a complete fraud. That is a long story for another time, but I'm mortified to think about some of the decisions I made at the time. Although, small little story about that is my very first member at Space in 2012 was a woman named Erica, and it turned out Erica was an attorney, and she helped me deal with my fraudulent designer, and we are friends to this day. I just saw her when I was in Chicago for the GWA conference, which is such a fun co-working story. So what I really needed was to transition from like big picture mindset, help me, figure out what I want to do and just keep taking the next step, to someone who knew how to start a co-working space. Well, those people didn't exist back then. So that's one of the reasons I do what I do today, is because I ran into this like, well, I guess I'll make it up. I also think I probably would have just made it up. Like many of you, you think, okay, I can figure this out, right? Like I can see how this probably works and I'll just make my way through it. And I had a lot of missteps that cost a lot of money in that original space. And thank goodness I had a consulting gig on the side. If you've heard my story, I was writing a lot of checks to build new offices in my co-working space, my first co-working space. So I just learned a ton and then became very passionate about helping others learn and not make the same mistakes that I did. So I'm just going to keep going with some of my stories because they kind of fit the stages. So then I'm out of startup phase. I have what I have. I've learned some hard lessons. I fixed most of them. I spent a lot of money doing it. And not money I wouldn't have spent, but money that I didn't know I was going to spend is how I would put it. So then I'm moving along and I get an opportunity to expand in Chicago. And then this was before we moved to the Bay Area, I think. So, well, it was kind of right in the middle of that. I had a lot going on. I also had a 1-year-old. My daughter was born while I was doing construction on the co-working space. So it was a lot of life change all at once. I'm an Enneagram 3, so I like to handle a lot of things at once. I'm not sure I would do that exactly over again. What I probably needed during that time was a really good therapist. So speaking of coaches, that's probably one type of coach, right? So, though I was probably almost a year in and I was starting to hire people. And then I was thinking about this expansion. And then it was probably when I was getting ready to move and build this new space. I was getting ready. I was moving and adding a space in Palo Alto. And a little bit later, after that, I became the executive director of the Global Workspace Association. So I just had like a lot of things I had to learn all at once and a lot of things I was contemplating. And one of my members at my Chicago location said, "Oh, I walked by. I was like, hey, what are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm getting ready to meet with my business coach." And I was like, "Oh, business coach? Who's that? What do you do with this business coach?" Because again, this was like probably 2013. And that was early days. Like people didn't just have coaches, back then. He was like, "No, I have this business coach." And I don't remember how he, knew him, but he's like, "Well, I'm working on this business and I need somebody to help me figure some things out." And I was like, "Oh, I want to meet your business coach." So I did a call with his business coach and Casey. I'm trying to remember Casey's last name. He's been on the podcast before. I can't believe I'm forgetting it because Casey was also very pivotal in my life. So Casey did not. So I ended up saying, okay, I need a business coach to contemplate like this expansion and just think through hiring and, moving. And then when I was in the GWA role, like that organization was really struggling, had been declining for years. So that was like a turnaround situation. So I just needed somebody who really knew business and it didn't really need to be co-working at the moment. So Casey was a great fit and Simone after Casey. And I worked with them, I don't know, for a couple of years maybe. And I got lucky though. I got in when they were just starting. So I had like the friends and family rate, which was pretty affordable. I know co-working space owners who worked with them after that, and they paid a much higher rate, which I think is challenging in our industry. It's one thing to pay to get things done, like to pay for marketing, to pay for ads. There are investments you need to make. And then it can be challenging with our margins to pay a lot for high-end coaching. So just something to think about. But my experience was I needed to invest in that at the time. And it was just a general business coach. And I think general business coaches, just kind of back to thinking about the phase that you're in. So I started with this like mindset, somebody to pull me along and like help me find my courage and help me just keep moving. So that was a real fit when I was like in contemplation mode and really trying to get brave about what was next for me in life and starting this new business, which I'd never done before. And then I should have inserted, if it existed at the time and I was willing to do it, someone to help me start the co-working business. I cannot even imagine, although, you know what? Life happens for a reason. I wouldn't be doing what I was doing if I'd gotten everything right the first time. I wouldn't be here helping you, right? And then there came Casey and then Simone with Cultivate Advisors as the company. And they had business frameworks and just helped me think through a lot of businessy things. And I've mentioned this, I have an MBA from the University of Chicago, which is many years the best ranked business school in the world. So I am highly trained and I can do a lot of businessy things and I'm kind of a nerd. I love business. So I study business. I'm constantly studying business and listening to content and reading and all those things. But a coach can do things for you that you cannot do on your own. They see things that you cannot see. And sometimes you just need a thought partner. And I totally get that you can use AI as a thought partner. It's different, right? It's different than having someone who really understands you and can help you with that like mindset piece as well. Because every coach does a little bit of that, even if that's not their focus. And being a business owner can be a real, I won't swear, mind can mess with you. So having someone in your corner who's not your spouse, my spouse is not all that interested in talking about business with me, can be really, really valuable in keeping you sane and helping you make good decisions. So if you're kind of in that, look, I need help with generic business things, then finding someone local can be really helpful. Financial management, hiring and leadership, some marketing fundamentals. But I think there's also a time to return to industry specific coaching. And that's where our new coaching programs come in because I think there's a real gap in the market for this. We have focused for many, many years on helping co-working space operators launch because of my own experience. So I had two locations, one in Chicago and then one in Palo Alto, and very different experiences. And today's not the day to go in deeply into those stories, but I am super passionate about helping people avoid the mistakes that they can make by trying to invent this business on their own. Many people think I can just reverse engineer this. I can tell you I've never seen anybody do that and not make big mistakes. I now tell people who are like not sure about the investment in the startup school, I say, look, I guarantee you that if you show up and do the work and ask questions and help us know, and Kim Lee is one of our coaches, help us know like what you're thinking about and what you're working on and show us a pro forma, et cetera. I mean, we'll make your money back many times. And we just had one woman who's starting a co-working space. The first call, I mean, I found many, many things that saved her tens of thousands of dollars that she just assumed. And she had experts on her team in design and architecture, et cetera, and that were making bad assumptions. Hiring an expert, because most of you have never run a co-working business, right? So if you're just starting co-working or anything else, you're just starting, you want to work with somebody who knows the business, not a general coach, unless you've run the business. If you're a GM of a co-working space and then you're going to go start your own, awesome. You know how this works. You've seen the P&L. I would still argue that you may not totally understand all the levers and how important they can be to get right, but you know a lot. But most of us have never, ever run a co-working space before. So we don't know anything. I shouldn't say we, because I have. You don't know anything about the business model. So this is the point when having a coach who knows this specific business and who can shortcut your time to success, who can help you avoid really expensive mistakes, who can keep you just really on track and save you a ton of time and money. And I would say whenever you're hiring a coach, unless it is like the first coach I hired, like what's the ROI on that? Well, a big life change, right? But I spent a lot of money to get help with that life change, but it's your life. You only have one life, right? So I didn't really need to calculate an ROI on that. But when I hire a coach, I am thinking about how am I going to make this back? What's this going to do for my business? So you get to a point where you might say, look, I need to increase revenue. I need to improve my profit. I need help with my team structure, managing my team. I need to fine tune operations. I need to see what's possible in terms of adding new products or services. I can tell you that because I know the business so well, if you show me your P&L and you talk me through what you're doing in your business, it doesn't take long to get right to the heart of what can be improved on and how do we align that with your goals and how do we do that within the constraints that you have, because you probably have time and capital constraints. And that's because I know the business so well. So if you're talking to a coach who does not know the business when you're looking for like really specific co-working support. Like I said, you want to increase revenue, you want to optimize profit, you're thinking about expanding. You want somebody who really knows the business. You don't want to go to the Score Mentor at this point, who I know is free and has lots of experience. They don't know the business. So they will give you advice. And oftentimes I get people after they've been to a Score Mentor and it's not good advice at some point. And so let's talk a little bit here. I'll tell you one more coaching. I like coaches. I always think everybody should always have a coach because, again, being in business for yourself is really challenging. So I have had, so aside from Casey and Simone, I have had a coach who had a container specific to marketing. So my industry, is what I do is different type of marketing than co-working because I'm marketing services and coaching and things like that. So I joined a program that was a group program, so not one-on-one coaching, that provided a lot of really in-depth support on marketing, running Facebook ads, messaging, etc. And the beautiful thing about that container is that it was full of other people who do the type of work that I do, not co-working specific, but supporting people within a specific niche. And the power of being in a room with experts who can help me with what I'm trying to accomplish, but also other people who are pursuing excellence. It's like that is such a rich experience and such a development opportunity. So there are times when one-on-one makes sense, and there are times when group programs make sense. So that's the most recent coach that I've had, and it was a group program, and it was, 100% work. I got the ROI out of the marketing support and the things it did to improve my program, and also the, sort of what's possible based on what other people are achieving and how they're looking at their business and listening to them get coached in a group container. So let's talk about one-on-one versus group coaching. One-on-one can be really effective. I do some one-on-one I love my one-on-one clients. What I do find, it's expensive for them because it's expensive to get time with a really experienced coach. And I find that we're solving the same problems over and over again, that everybody has similar problems. And I totally get that sometimes you just want to go through things that are personal and that you need to do one-on-one. So, but again, most of these things, I keep thinking when I'm in these sessions, oh my God, if I could just amplify this challenge across a group of operators, they would get so much value out of this because everyone needs to be looking at these challenges and do they have the same challenges and how can they solve them or overcome them or get to the next step. So I love group containers and group coaching because you learn from others' challenges and wins. You get ideas that you wouldn't have thought of on your own or just one-on-one with your own coach. And you're surrounded by people who are pursuing success. And that energy is so motivating and so valuable. So I think group programs have a really important place. So we just launched the Revenue Playbook and Accelerator to provide options for group experiences plus focused coaching as needed. And the coaching will really be on group calls and on our community platform. The Revenue Playbook, hold on, I got to go to so we have two options. So I want to dive right into, we just opened these memberships for enrollment, and we're so excited to see people coming in and joining us. We have been running an operator mastermind, but it's been really light. So we've also been running a community manager university program. And so I'll talk about the first path, option one, and describe that path, which is it can be for owners only, and it can be for owners to do with community managers. So our community manager program is really rich and robust and pretty high level in terms of the things that we're teaching and giving the community managers the option to do through our training. Of course, we have a community and Q&A and coaching on whatever they're, trying to solve. So there's lots of like little day-to-day things that we help them through. And we also provide more strategic training topics. So we find that we think the community managers and the owners could get more out of it if they were on the same path. And they obviously need different things across those paths. So the owner track is really about prioritizing which projects to pursue, thinking about strategy and how to allocate resources and track results. And then the community managers need the practical tools and templates and playbooks and the ability to ask questions to actually get these things done and make improvements in the business. It might be something like, how do we increase our tour conversion rate? So the owner is going to make their priority, set the KPIs, and track this in their weekly meeting. The community manager can come in and get really practical training and tips through the community manager program. The owner will be able to go through that same training as well. And if you're an owner operator with no community manager, that's good for you too. In the past, we've had two tracks and there was no really combining them. And we are bundling, so making the price really affordable. It's $97 a month for this track. And then it's I think it's 144 to keep looking at my things here, 144 to have, that's correct. So it's a $50 discount if you add your team member. So if you want to bundle, and if you're already a community manager member, then you're gonna have to reach out and we'll have to kind of swap your memberships. So the revenue playbook path is group. So you get a community and you get training every month and responses in the community. So this is really about one thing to learn and focus on every month that you and your team can decide to do or not to do. It's $97 a month. So it's an incredible value for what you get out of it. If you do it with your team, it's $144, and they can come to all of the community manager calls and the owners can come to all of the owner calls and focus on strategy or the actual tactics. So we'll do one call a month for that program. And it's really about just, leveraging a playbook that we put out every month and other resources and getting to ask questions about it. So it's about helping you create some focus and get things done faster. Now, if you have specific projects that you want to work on and you want deeper coaching and personalized feedback and accountability and someone to really sort of walk through the process that you're going through and make sure that you have what you need and it's just much more personalized than the Profit Accelerator is for you. So that is weekly small group coaching calls with personalized feedback. And we do an onboarding call that will help you identify your goals and help us get to know your business so that we can provide the right support. Direct access to an experienced coach who understands co-working operations. So that's me and other coaches that we bring in, and support from a smaller ongoing group of operators working towards their next level of growth. And you can each choose your own project to pursue, and we will support you and you'll learn from others who are pursuing other projects. So that structure really helps you get real results. We're going to track your results. We're going to make sure you have everything you need to be supported. We'll respond to, individual questions in our community platform, and you get weekly small group coaching calls. You don't have to sit through the whole call. You could just come on and get the question you have asked, but there's so much value in seeing what others are pursuing and listening to the coaching that they get. And that's the Profit Accelerator. That's $297 a month, and that's a 6-month commitment because we need that time to get you results. So, if you've listened to this episode and feel like you might be in that phase where you are ready to get help starting your own co-working space and you want support from experts, then join our co-working startup school. We have a live cohort starting shortly. You can find all the details on our website at everythingcoworking.com. And if it's time to focus on making your space more profitable, generating more revenue, optimizing your operations and team, then the Revenue Playbook or the Profit Accelerator might be a good fit for you. We would love to have you join us. We have some very juicy bonuses that are available until Friday, this Friday. So go take a look, everythingcoworking.com/profit. You can also find the link in the show notes, and certainly find me on email or Instagram DM if you have any questions that you want to send our way. We would love to have you join our community, and we'd love to support your co-working goals.